This does go. Those of you just tuning in after the fact, you're not here for the live. If you fast forward to 00:00, you should be pretty much, right at the cusp of the story. Be at the cusp of the story. All right, we are getting online here. Those chats you see down below, those are from our earlier test episode this afternoon. We had a ton of technical difficulties last episode. Hi, Sean. How are you, sir? And so we need to get everything dialed in. All of a sudden, it's really strange. Much of the stuff is digital, so it should be the same every week. And yet, narrator, it wasn't the same every week. Hey, Cobalt, how are you doing? I believe I sound a lot better than I did last week. Well, I probably sound about the same. A's going to sound like, oh, it's a magical $1 million. Or is that 1,000,000 lira when you have to do that accent? I don't know. I don't know much at all. Let's see. I've gotten all of this stuff done. Clean sweep, you guys. A clean sweep of prep work, which we don't always get to do. All right, how are we doing? Chris Grawl in the house. Chris Grawl. I want to get an update on that puppy. Also, maybe get a little Fortnite in one of these days. Something like that. Sean says, work is always interesting. Work is always interesting. My work. Oh, Scott Aitken in the house. What's up, man? My work is interesting sometimes when I get to do it, but I took a couple days off. Lord of the Rings girl, hello, how are you? Jenna Lee from stormy northern Indiana. I understand you guys got some serious storms. Rob Otto in the house. Sweet the leg. Actually, this is how live works. I got a text from Rob here I haven't followed up on. Oh, okay, Rob. All right. Rob literally is sending me notes on the story right here. So that's a good idea, Rob. I think we have to do that. Dr. Daniel Baker, PhD. Hello. Daryl Harris. Good to see you, sir. It's a sharp hat you got in your profile picture there, Daryl. I'm not going to lie to you. All right. Those of you coming in after the fact, again, if you fast forward to 00:00, story time begins and the magic happens. This is where the magic happens. It should happen in the bedroom, but, that's the way things go. All right. I'm still cleaning up a couple of little bitsy things here. Deep cuts, yes. Save that. Good. Is good. Did forget a couple little things, didn't I? All right. Close you. We don't need you. Close you. It's one of those things, man. No matter how, no matter how much I get ahead of the game, there's always a couple little things that are goofy. And good. Now we do this. Not recording you. We're recording you. Say, boom, bam, bing, bam, boom. Tony Mangino, how you doing? Pedro, how are you? Junkie fam. That's right. Yeah, Rob says Slay text during the Slay podcast. Very meta. Very, very meta. The story can modify itself on the fly. That's not really true. Not really true, but it feels like that sometimes. Totally feels like that sometimes. Great. I got, let's see what I get done. I got some new buttons to push, which I'm very excited about. I have to do this to make sure the camera's, all right, I turn this and then do this because I'm getting a little bit of reflection on the back of the mic from my lustrous, mellifluous voice. Nick Ladd. Hi, Scott. I want to wish you a happy 20th anniversary for the podcast. AC started March, unknown date of 2005. Here's the thing, Steve. I'm not great with math, and sometimes I'm confused on anniversary, numbered anniversaries, right? So yes, it started March of 2025. So March of 2026 is the first anniversary, which would mean that this March is the 19th anniversary, right? Starting 2025, which is year one, then first anniversary. Then starting 2005. Now it's 2025. So you guys, any math people in there or any calendar people, help me out with that. I'm just a simple podcasting caveman. Your numbers and anniversaries and binary systems frighten and confuse me. Very good. Very good. Okay. Hey, Recluse Mage. How you doing, buddy? We did a little work in the sound. And as usual, like some of this, we have both analog and digital gear. So you tweak one little thing on the analog gear and boom, all of a sudden I'm way louder than I was last week, but still within the parameters. If Steve the Iceberg Rickyberg's in the room, I think you'll be much happier with this. Trying to get it all dialed in. Edward, then answer my question. Wouldn't this be the 19th anniversary? Because the first anniversary is in 2006. So the 20th anniversary is going to be in 2026. Chris says Facebook is really choppy, starting to receive. Yes, there's my own kind of math. I can't help it, you guys. I literally heard say, oh my God. Then she had to get on and text, oh my God. Marble Gargler says, you're right. You are right. But as a society, generally we've agreed to ignore that. See the bicentennial 1776 to 1976. Oh, goddamn. Sean seems to have it nailed. First anniversary is in 2006. Got it. Thanks, Sean. That's right. 20 fucking years, bitches. Think of that. Think of that. How many other podcasting storytellers you watch them been doing this shit for 20 years? Frankly, how many other podcasts have been doing this for 20 years? Very, very few. Very, very few. Cobalt says sound and video seem okay on YouTube. Yes?
Oh my God. Oh my God. You guys.
I do words. I didn't get the numbers gene. I got like everybody else's word genes though. So it turns out okay. It's a little hot in here. Ugh. Marble Gargle says, you're counting like we count age, and it's your fucking podcast, so you can do as you please. Well, I'm not sure what I'm going to do, because I sure wish I'd fucking realized the 20th was coming up, so I could have done a big press release and all this other shit. So you may see some slammed promotion coming at the end of the month, see if we get some press out of that shit. But if that doesn't work, then guess what? April is going to be the 20th anniversary of the Scott Sigler podcast. I have a short story due, a cryptid short story due. I got a short story out while I was on vacation with Dr. Dan Baker, PhD, and Rob Jack Daniels, Otto. And so I still am behind on several things. I got to get those done. We are way behind on shit, I forgot what I was going to say. That bodes well for the episode. We're trying to move to that paid format where everything will continue to be free, but the ad-free part will be paid. We are 4 months behind on that. So will I get a press release out or something for 20th anniversary of podcasting? I don't know. Remains to be seen. Okay. Sean, 20 years of Sigler Ascension Day? No, that's 2007. Sigler Ascension Day happened. Yes, that's correct. I'll have to look that up, actually, because that was when the Ancestor, first indie press Ancestor came out. Ishmael says, yes, Scott's still the best at this. Right, is the OG of podcast fiction. Personally reading his work, gotta respect that. Kyle Jacobson, hello, sir, how are you? 3 coins in the fountain, Rob. I have to admit, I have forgotten what the 3 coins in the fountain reference is from We May Have Drank a Lot. I don't know. 20 years of screaming at you. All right, guys, let's go to Maine here. Get ready to rumble. Let's see. Why else we try and hit this right on time? Teleprompter's up. Logic's up in the background. A little bit of gas, because you know you guys always give me the gas. All right, here we go. All right, bitches. Let's get ready for story time. Get rid of that right there. Here we go. Now here we go. I had to start recording first. And we're just going to check that, make sure everything's dope. Everything is dope. And go back to teleprompter. Here we go. Previously on dang it. Start. Somehow I made the script go backwards. It's one of those days. Alrighty, here we go. Let's get at it. Let's just go ahead and redo this for me. 3rd time's charm. Ariella sent Linc and Billy to Israel to acquire the black armor of Sir Arnault the Pure, an ancient relic hidden deep in the catacombs beneath the Hospitaller Commandery of Saint Jean de Cray. An ancient relic hidden deep in the catacombs beneath the Hospitaller Commandery of Saint Jean de Cray. Ariella says she needs that armor before the Old Stone Church crew helps Dante try to take over Callista's territory. But she hasn't said what the armor actually does. If Linc and Billy don't bring it back, they will never know. And now, episode 88 of Slay. Lincoln shook out the bag of holding. It was made of the same void dragon skin as his cloak. He looked inside. Weird. He could see the bottom of the bag. When Ariella gave it to him, he figured the inside would look like, well, like gazing into the end of the universe or something. Linc, you hear me? We're almost there. A little too loud on my side. Here we go. Billy stood there in his white scale armor, fireproof black jeans, black boots, machete holster strap across his chest, topped by the shell-laden strap of his shotgun holster strap. He looked ripped. Dude had come a long way from the scrawny little shit Lincoln had almost killed in a Lumencia alley. Transits, impossibly white and absolute black, streaked along behind him and all around them. I'm listening. Linc tapped his temple. Mine like a steel trap. Yeah? Then what's the name of that Phoenician mystic sect? The god they worship and the gemstone? The sect. Lincoln knew this. The sect was Baba Black Sheep, or something real close to that. The god was a Kula Shaker, and the stone is called, the Hungry Boy. Good name for a gemstone, if you ask me. Billy shook his head, looked at Lincoln the way Magda often looked at him when she shook her head. The sect was Ba'ashim, not Baba Black Sheep, Billy said. Kula Shaker is some old band. The sect was called Urashakar, which means the hunger beneath, which must be where you got Hungry Boy, because that's not even close to Azakar's eye, which is the name of the gemstone. He put his hand to his ear, mimicked an old person who couldn't listen. Hear all that well. What's that? Azakar's eye? The gemstone made out of filament from human sacrifices? He put his hand down. Yeah, I'd say that sounds important enough to remember. Also, like Magda, Billy could be a real pain in the ass. Calm down, Lincoln said. We'll figure it out. We go in there. Shoot. Messed that up. Well, here we go. Rolling. It's live. We'll figure it out. We go in there, separate the helmet from the body. Oh, I did. Sorry, guys. We're rolling. Calm down, Lincoln said. We'll figure it out. We go in there, smash the shit out of the armor, separate the helmet from the gorget. You know what a gorget is? Billy huffed. Yeah, I know what a gorget is. Just because I don't wear armor doesn't mean I don't know the parts. I'm a nerd, remember? Nerds know all kinds of shit like that. It figured that Billy already knew. The kids seemed to know a lot about a lot. Nerds, man. Always learning and shit. Great, Lincoln said. We knock its block off, put the armor in whatever the fuck that gemstone is, and we go home. Easy peasy. Billy's jaw actually dropped. You read about that in novels and whatnot, but rarely saw it in real life. Whatever the fuck the gemstone is, Linc, this is important. Before the Assyrians wiped out the Ba'ashim, they ruled the land in a tidal wave of blood. It's their unholy land upon which the Hospitaller Commandery Saint-Decret fortress was built. When Sir Arnault the Pure went into the tunnels, he and his armor were consumed. Kid, if you're going to get into this business, you'll find there's a lot of little details that don't really matter, Lincoln said. And then you'll find the word unholy is a relative term. There's been over 10,000 religions in human history, and that's just high level. Factor in all the sects and denominations. Did you know there's 45,000 distinct sects of Christianity that exist right now? And we're only talking about... Gotta retake that line. Sorry, guys. Factor in all the sects and denominations. Did you know there's 45,000 distinct sects of Christianity that exist right now? And we're talking over 200,000. Easy. And most of the people in each religion think anyone not in their religion is unholy. You get me? Billy crossed his arms. "Oh my God, you are exasperating," he said. "I, for one, think that a gemstone made of human sacrifice is an important little detail." For fuck's sake, the kid was pouting. The impossible white became somehow whiter. The impenetrable black became somehow blacker. "Get your game face on," Lincoln said. "We're here." "Good. I assume your steel trap mind remembers how to get to the catacombs, right?" What a smartass. But he was correct. Lincoln didn't remember. He didn't have to, because he knew Billy would. "This ain't my first rodeo, youngin'," Lincoln said. "Of course I remember, but you're the new guy, so you handle that while I supervise." Billy fell quiet. Lincoln knew him well enough now to see that he had something on his mind, something that he wanted to know but was hesitant to bring up. "Out with it, kid," Lincoln said. Billy waited for a moment, then spoke in a quiet voice. "After Magda got hurt, did you ever go after Vestinian on your own?" Lincoln should have known that question was coming sooner or later. "No, I didn't." "Why not? You afraid of him?" The answer was one Lincoln didn't like to admit, but Billy deserved the truth. "Yeah, I am. He's a killer. But fear for my own life wasn't the only reason. I've faced death before, more times than I can remember. If I went after Vestinian, though, and he killed me, I don't know who would take care of Magda. Yeah, I risk my life when I go after bounties, but it's not the same. Vestinian's power is way above anyone I've hunted. The bigger picture, though, is he sort of, well, he let bygones be bygones." That memory of finding Magda, all cut up, all broken, like the fragile toy of a violent child. "He never came looking for us," Lincoln said. "Maybe he thinks he taught us a lesson. I don't know. Do I want to kill him? Yeah, with every fiber of my being. But if I take him on and I don't get it right, he'll try to find us. He'll come after Magda again." Lincoln had come to grips with this unwinnable scenario long ago. He shrugged. "So every day, I live with the fact that he won." Billy thought on that for a moment, the haze of transit whipping along behind him. "I get it," he said finally. "Gotta be hard on you, though, sitting with that right in your chest." Truer words had never been spoken. Billy understood. Maybe less now than he would later, when he was confident in his powers, when he knew he could crush so many enemies, yet there were some that just had your number. Bottom line, though, was Billy got it. And that helped. Only a little, but it helped. Lincoln felt himself torqued and twisted and shattered into a million pieces that smashed back together, the whole process happening in half a blink of an eye. He stood in a small room made of chipped tan stone blocks. Along the sides and parallel down the middle were calf-high benches of weathered rocks held together by ancient whitish tan cement. The benches had holes in them, spaced out every 3 feet. A few curved clay circles topped some of the holes. Similar curved circles lie broken in halves on the sandy floor. Billy pointed to one of the clay circles. "Holy crap," he said. "Literally! Is that an ancient toilet seat?" "Looks like it. Ariella said we'd transit to the latrine. Or maybe you weren't listening?" Billy rolled his eyes. "There you go again with that killer stand-up instinct of yours. Seems like an 8th-century-old community shitter is the perfect place for your Type 5. Such a smartass. "Linc, after we get the armor, can we look around the fortress? This is the first time I've been out of the country. If all I see is a latrine and some tunnels, that'll kind of suck." A fair point, but this wasn't a vacation. The fortress had long since become a historical site and a museum. It was about 1 a.m. local time, but that didn't mean the place was empty. "Sightseeing's for another day," Lincoln said. "Just get us to the catacombs." This part Lincoln actually did remember. The latrine was a transit hub, like so many other ancient bathrooms around the world, but the fortress also had secret internal connections, apparently long forgotten to history. Ariella had, somehow, learned about them. Maybe she read about it in one of her books. She had hundreds of the things at her brownstone, dozens more at her office in the old stone church. Nerds, man. Always learning and shit. Billy pulled a tiny scroll of paper from one of the shotgun shell slots on his bandolier. The kid had taken notes. He and Ariella were alike in that way. Always reading, always studying, always writing things down, while Linc and Magda preferred to watch old movies. Billy read from the scrap of paper. He looked at the chipped walls, at the paper again, then made a half turn to his right. He rolled up the paper, slid it back into his bandolier. Signa et signa manifestant, he said. A sheen passed over the walls, the floor, and the ancient toiletries and piss holes. Glowing green runes appeared on the stones. Nice, kid. You know Latin now? Not all of it, Billy said. Not yet. Lincoln knew enough of that language to activate his various meshwork weapons and devices, along with just enough Assyrian and Norse to get by. He had known a lot more of those languages and others when he'd been training at the Bastion, but that had been a long time ago. Billy touched a rune. With the grind of stone on stone, the roughly 6-inch by 6-inch stone block beneath it slid slightly inward. A block with one of the ancient toilet holes dropped down and vanished from sight. Kick ass, Billy said. This is some serious Raiders of the Lost Ark action. Yeah, I can totally see Indy crawling through old sewers to find the hungry boy eye. It's Azakur's eye! Goddamn, man! The recessed crapper was the first of 4 secret descents to reach the catacombs. Lincoln didn't anticipate any danger until they reached the bottom level. Still, Billy was new at this, so no point in taking chances. I'll go first, Linc said. Stay close to me. Jeez, you go into an ancient Crusader fortress latrine with a guy one time and he wants to talk about commitment. Man, I swear. Lincoln tried not to laugh, but he couldn't stop himself. Great callback, kid, but this ain't the time for jokes. Serious from here on out? Billy mimed locking his mouth and tossing the key away. He was nervous, scared, dealing with it one of the 2 ways he handled such emotions, with humor. Linc had to admit it was far better than the other way Billy handled things, by talking a mile a minute and spouting off whatever popped into his mind. Remember, kid, this is just like under the bridge against the Lagoons. Use your power sparingly, if at all. Let's stay off Estinian's radar as long as we can, yeah? Billy nodded, eager to be involved at all, but Lincoln heard the hypocrisy in his own words. Helping Dante would likely draw Vestinian's attention just as much as Billy using his power would. Lincoln pulled his cloak tight, shrugged in his shoulders, made himself as narrow as possible. Descendat. He hopped up and floated down into the 8th century-old shithole. The catacombs didn't look all that different than the ones that made up Teddy Two Fingers' lair, although these didn't have rusty iron cell doors. Total blackness. No torches on the wall like you see in the movies. Morgan Stone had taught Billy how to use his filament to see in the dark, send out low-level heat, see what objects bounce that heat back. With that technique, Billy saw a ghostly red-gray vision of what lay before him. It wasn't as good as the night vision like in Call of Duty. It wasn't as good as real night vision like in Call of Duty. Not yet, anyway, but it was damn cool. Take this left, Billy said. Then the next right. Linc turned left. Billy had to call out directions because he had listened to Ariella, while Linc had been contemplating his next panini or whatever he did instead of paying attention. If this was how the guy had acted when he and Magda had been out fighting together, it was a miracle Linc was still banging heads while Magda was the one hiding away from the worlds. Some people always ended up on their feet. Some did not. Linc reached the next corner, went left. "No, your other right," Billy said. Without looking back, Linc raised his left hand and flipped him off. "Oh, sorry." He raised his right hand and flipped him off with that as well. "I meant to flip you off with my other right." It made sense that much of the underskin action, the mystical, magical subrealm of reality that the normies, the purblind, couldn't see, took place underground. You didn't have to burn filament to create overlays down here. Didn't have to risk jerboas showing up to wipe out any purblind who saw magic happening. Billy considered his heat vision as active infrared. He had to send out heat to see heat. He was working on passive infrared, where he could see heat generated by living things. Maybe undead things as well. That wasn't how physics worked, Billy knew, but as his old friend Joe had once said about magic, you can't science this stuff. Magic worked the way magic worked. It wasn't always consistent or even logical, for that matter. Maybe that was why not everyone could do it. Lincoln stopped, pointed to the floor. "Looks like we're not the first to try this." On the stone floor lie two skeletons, one whole, one ripped into pieces. Arm bones there, a shattered fibula and tibia sticking out of a boot there. Rusted metal blades. A few buckles. No leather, no cloth. Time, rats, insects, mold, and bacteria had eaten away at those, perhaps. How long had these corpses been here? You think Sir Arnold's armor got him?" "Probably," Linc said. "Looks like the fucker's strong." Yes, the fucker was strong. Ariella had said so. "Stay close," Linc said. "How much farther do you think?" Billy glanced back, let his heat cascade off the walls, counted the misty red-gray corners behind them. "Should be straight ahead. Maybe 100 feet, then a left. The altar's at a dead end." Linc started forward. Billy wished Dragon were here. Could Dragon see in the dark? Dogs could, to some extent, but Dragon wasn't a real dog. Was she? Maybe in dachshund form, she was. Billy needed to learn more about that. The little girl was full of surprises. How was her spear wound healing? Was Mags taking care of it? No, of course Mags was taking care of it. Ariella handled the business, Mags handled the healing. "More bodies," Lincoln said. 3 this time. Probably 3. It was hard to tell, as none of them were in one piece. More meat on these bones. Mummified meat, but still meat. Scraps of clothing. Billy couldn't tell if there were colors on the fabric, as his heat vision didn't reveal such things. "Treasure hunters," Lincoln said. "Could have been here for 100 years for all we know. 200 maybe." Billy saw something on the floor. He picked it up, examined it. "Probably more recent," he said. "This is one of those old Polaroid cameras." Lincoln knelt, picked up a thin square off the ground. He slid it into his cloak and stood. "Drop it. Let's go." Linc strode down the passageway, as silent as a snail. Billy's heat echo didn't bounce off the man's cloak. That thing was beyond stealth. Billy didn't drop the broken camera. It seemed disrespectful to do so. He knelt, set it near what was left of a hand and a forearm, then hurried after his friend. They turned the corner. Up ahead, a brief flash. Dozens of black candles sparking into fluttering flame. Some on the floor in fixed puddles of cooled wax, some on golden stands with thin black stalactites hanging down, some set in notches in the stone wall. A small alcove, both walls curving back to a point at the rear. In the center, a flat, rectangular block of archaic stone. On that stone, a small cradle of gold and silver filigree that reflected flickering candlelight. Held aloft by that candle, almost floating, was a fist-sized stone. So black, so nothing, it looked like a hole in space and time, its shape merely hinted at by shimmering facet-edge reflections. Within that stone, Billy saw filament, slowly roiling, thicker than any he'd seen before. Filament of fear and terror, of pain, of regret for things left unsaid or undone. Filament captured at the moment of an agonizing death. If this gem was the consolation prize, how badass would the armor be? "Oh, I guess that's the hungry boy," Linc said. Billy no longer cared about nomenclature. That gemstone, it was absolute evil. "That slab is where they sacrifice people," Billy said. Lincoln nodded. "You ready?" All they had to do was lift the stone from the cradle. That, according to Ariella, would summon the black armor of Sir Arnault the Pure. "Linc, you know that armor killed those dudes behind us, right?" "And a whole lot more," Linc said. "I'm not going back empty-handed, kid. If Ariella needs this, she needs this. Come on." Hundreds of feet below the surface of an ancient fortress, walking the same paths trod by the murderous priests of Ba'ashim, Billy Middleton followed his friend to the altar where countless human beings had been sacrificed. Lincoln reached into his cloak, pulled out the bag of holding Ariella had given him. "Commence fucking around phase." With all the subtlety of a fart in church, Lincoln plucked the stone from the cradle and tossed it in the bag. "And now for the find out phase." The corridors moaned with the dying breath of 1,000 sacrificial victims. Billy felt their fear and agony, like a penetrating breeze of anguish that blew through him. His heart began to hammer. "Stay cool, kid," Lincoln said. This is the part where those other guys ran, thinking they could hoof it out of here. We're not running." He slid the bag into his cloak. When his hand came out, it held Tizona, the sword's mirror-finished metal sparkling in the light of the black candles. Billy drew his shotgun. "Kid, come to think of it, we got to get you a real weapon, for the up-close shit," Linc said. "That machete's fine and all, but it's not going to cut the mustard long term. That blade, it's just not you, The breeze became a wind, a powerful carrier of death's many echoes, and Linc was making small talk. "Yeah, maybe next time I go to Cordis, you come with me," he said. "We'll hit up Peanut at the clearinghouse. He's got like that whole back room, boxes and crates and chests and shit. I bet they don't even know all the stuff they got. They gotta have something there that speaks to you, right?" "Yeah, sure." Shopping. That was foremost on Billy's mind at the moment. The sound of solid metal steps thudding against stone echoed through the catacombs. "Oh shit," Billy said. "Is he big? He sounds big. Ariella said it was a suit armor, but she didn't say it was big. I mean, it sounds huge, like it weighs 500 pounds or something. Gotta be big to tear those guys apart and scatter their body parts around like confetti. Why you gotta scatter their body parts, Linc? That's not cool. That's not cool at all. You know what it is? It's mean. It's disrespectful to the dead. Unless he tore them apart when they were alive, but oh shit, do you think he tore them apart while he was alive?" An armored hand on his shoulder. "Stay cool, kid," Linc said, sounding like this was just another Tuesday and murderous, enchanted suits of evil armor were no big deal. "Stay calm and remember to keep breathing." The footsteps sounded like gongs. Gongs coming closer. Keep breathing. Right. That's what Linc always said in training. Relax and keep breathing. Slow and steady. Get that oxygen. Billy did as he'd been trained. And his body relaxed Not all the way, because how could he relax all the way down here with the Hungry Boy stone and mummified body parts and a fucked up old Polaroid camera? Down the corridor, something stepped into the dim candlelight. Yeah, Linc said. Turns out, it's big. A suit of armor as black as the shadows themselves lumbered closer, metal feet thundering against the stone floor. So big, the metal spikes jutting from its shoulders scraped against both walls and ceiling, kicking off bright sparks that fell and bounced. It held a halberd, the weapon's spike and curved blade just as black as the rest of it. The helmet, too, scraped against the ceiling, chipping off a light rain of broken stone. Yellow-orange mist leaked from the 6 vertical slots in the closed faceplate. On it came, picking up speed. Holy shit, that thing was so big and so damn mean looking. Well, don't just stand there, Lincoln said. Shoot it! Something inside of Billy switched on, or maybe switched off and got out of the way. He wasn't sure which. He shouldered the shotgun and started firing. Meshwork slugs slammed into the inky breastplate, thudded against the visor. The sprinting suit of armor flinched with the impacts, but didn't slow. Linc stepped forward to meet it, parrying the halberd aside, then whipping a deft cut intended to sever the helmet from the body. To zone his blade clanked off the gorget, the bit that protected the wearer's neck. Inertia carried the black armor of Sir Arnault the Pure forward, right arm slamming Linc into the stone wall. Putting all of his weight and strength into the strike, Billy sidestepped forward and threw a push kick into the off-balance armor's chest plate. He heard and felt the empty armor reverberate, the sound slap echoing off the close-in stone walls. The armor stopped, stumbled back. Billy sidestepped forward again, put all he had into a push kick to the helmet. The armor leaned left, slipping the kick. Billy's foot hit nothing. A black gauntlet snapped up and grabbed his ankle. The other gauntlet gripped his thigh. Twisting at the hips, the armor slammed Billy into the tunnel wall, a thunderous impact that sounded through Billy's body, stunning him. He fell to the floor, looked up in time to see a black steel boot driving for his face. Billy rolled inward, the heel chonked into the stone, breaking off chips. Billy's roll carried him into the armor's other leg. The armor bent at the waist. Like pouncing steel spiders, twin black gauntlets reached downward to grab Billy. The armor tumbled forward, driven by a tackling Linc. Man and possessed armor alike slammed into the sacrificial altar with enough force to make the heavy stones skid backward, knocking black candles aside. Billy sprang to his feet. With speed that defied belief, still on the ground, among the spilled black wax, Linc reached into his cloak and came out with Bastard Maker. He drove a backhanded strike into the armor's neck, denting the armor inward. The suit of armor grabbed for Linc's hand, but the Rixator was too quick. He rolled away, dodging the steel fingers, which instead grabbed a handful of trailing void cloak. The black arm yanked the opposite way, whipping Linc like a mace on a chain to slam through candle stands and into the wall. Billy couldn't help but wince at the impact, couldn't help but wonder if Linc was dead. Billy felt the heat flare within him, instant and intense. The gorget. The dented gorget. He had to sever that helmet from the spiked, armored shoulders. With surprising deftness, one gauntlet still full of cloak, the armor hurried to its feet, intent on whipping Linc in the other direction and smashing him into the alcove's other wall. Billy rushed forward, reaching back with his right hand to draw his machete from its back holster. The blade burst into red flame. The knight swung, tried to hit Billy with Linc, but Billy, still moving forward, squatted low, felt the flap of Linc's cloak caress his face and head, blinding him for an instant, but Billy knew where his target was. He pushed up, thrusting the blade as Linc sailed past. The instant Linc hammered into the curved alcove wall, hard enough to make the floor shake, the tip of Billy's burning blade drove into the dented gorget, into it and through it. Billy threw a left-hand palm strike into the faceplate even as he twisted the blade. The helmet flew backward, bounced off the stone wall, tumbled into a puddle of black wax. Yellow-orange lights still fluttering, slightly, in the visor's vertical slots. The helmetless armor stood there for a moment, wavering, swaying, then fell backward, landing with a hollow clang atop the sacrificial altar. It moved no more. Holy shit. Holy shit. Had Billy just done that? The heat coursed within him, strong like he was, powerful like he was, charged with destruction, but under control. Completely under control. Ow, Linc said. Billy rushed to his friend, who lay on the floor in a tangle of cloak and shattered stone. Linc, you okay? You hurt? Linc grunted. I just got tetherballed into a dungeon wall, so yeah, I'm hurt. Did you get him? Billy glanced over his shoulder, saw the helmet, saw the last of the light within wink out. Yeah, I got him. Oh, titties and beer, Linc said. He winced, tried to rise. Help me up, will you? Billy did so, pulling his friend to his feet. Billy brushed dust and chips of rock from Linc's cloak. Linc's left arm hung limp. That bitch was strong, he said. I hadn't been tossed around like that since I was 12 and fought this bodybuilding cyclops on a cycle of roids. I think my collarbones broke. He winced anew as he fished in his cloak with his right hand, came out with the bag Ariella had given him. Bag him, kid. Let's get back to the latrine and head home. That's it, y'all. Boop, boop. Let's make sure this newfangled recording project. I fucking forgot how to pronounce gorget. I don't even and now I've said the word so many times, it doesn't even make any sense to me. Gorget, gorget. Probably have to punch all those in when I get through it. All right, that was very fun. Pretty good fight. Hope you guys enjoyed the brawl. Trying to hit Billy with Linc. Rob says, damn. David Lamb says, I like the name Bastard Maker. I wonder if that sword name is a legacy from his D&D days. I don't think so. I think I just sort of came up with that because it's very, very fun. Cobalt hits, that is nuts. Hell yeah. Scott Aitken. What do you say? Phew. Well, Scott, you thought they were in trouble. It's all right. I get it. Gorget. God damn it. Sean says Gorget is correct. To Gorget's. Sometimes you get rolling in this shit. I actually spell everything out phonetically before it gets there, but I didn't do Gorget, and I fucked up the name of the fortress. So a couple things got to get punched in. Martin Evans giving me a fist bump. Thank you, sir. Yeah, pretty fun episode. It's really, as a creator, Rob and I are really enjoying Billy's arc. And it's not a spoiler to tell you, Billy at this point doesn't even have a concept of what he's capable of doing. This is all very new to him, and he's going to have to get used to it in a hurry because shit's about to hit the fan, son. Shit is about to hit the fan. Joseph Aldred says, my wife's career recently took off, allowing me to quit my job and write. All right, buddy. I'm going from about 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, 6-ish hours a day, 4 days a week. Great, man. Great. We got some husbands working at home here in the chat room as well. You know, if she's out, is she working at home or is she going out to work and come back? So tell you what, she coming back after that day's work, you're writing your butt off. You can get a little cocktail ready, a little dinner ready. Shit'll go a long way, son. A long way to preserving that wonderful opportunity that you have to really dive into your craft. Baby girl, come on up whenever you're ready. Billy thinking and saying it pronounced with a hard T can make sense if you primarily found it in writing. You're probably right, Sean, except unless another character calls him out on the bad pronunciation, then it's just creator error, right? Anybody listening to this is eventually going to be like, oh, Scott doesn't know how to pronounce that shit. So which Scott doesn't know how to pronounce that shit. So we got to get that fixed up. Hey, baby girl.
Hey, Dolly.
How are you?
I'm good. It's hot in here.
It's getting hot in here. I mean, I make that joke about as much as I make the joke, Hump Day! Also, Hump Day was one of the great commercials of all time. Hey, you know what day it is?
Hump Day.
Hump Day! I love that one. Okay, baby girl, let's get you dialed in here. I don't say. Oh, what's going on? Oh, that's why. Okay. Give us a second, y'all. That was my throat made that noise. That was crazy.
Yeah.
That was crazy. Okay, maybe a little bit more of this. Oop, there you go. Okay, baby girl, looks great. Way to go. Way to go. What did you think of the story, honey?
I love that story. I love this story. I love Billy. I was saying in the chat room, I love Billy's earnestness so much.
I was pleased. I forgot Billy had a rant in this episode. And then when I got to the rant and I pulled it off almost all correctly, I was like, whoo. Usually I practice those rants a little bit. So I'm going to be a little closer to my microphone. It sounds like I'm bleeding over into yours, which is a smaller problem than everything else. So what's wrong?
Oh, that's the new thing.
Yeah, that's a new thing.
Okay.
Okay, let's get queued up. And I got the talkie talk done beforehand, so you're ready to go. Let's go.
Yeah, he got the talkie talk done while I was walking the dogs. Oh, I'm very mouth clicky.
Yeah, that's another. It's part of the game. Here, have some water.
Oh.
That'll help a little bit. And lean away from we have the water.
All I'm saying is, are my presets done?
Yeah, we didn't touch anything since this afternoon. We spent some time this afternoon. Ooh, why don't you move that water over there from the opposite side of your computer? We at Empty Set have destroyed not one, but 2 computers with flying fluid. So, we have to be very careful.
Wait, 1 computer and 1 microphone, right?
Oh, 2 computers and a microphone.
Ooh,
We've killed 2 computers.
That feels even worse.
Got 2 computers and a microphone. Where it's at. Jaded Moment 83 says, I'm so glad Billy lived. It's early in the season, man. It's early in the season. Just we'll see where it goes. We'll see it goes. Rob Otto says, that is the problem with malapropism in the movies. You have to have the character called out so the viewer knows it's not the writer or actor making a mistake. Rob uses big words. Have you noticed?
I know.
Yep.
Yeah, it's impressive. I knocked both of our microphones, just for the record.
Malapropism. Yeah, you're hitting stuff. We're listening. There's a little ringing, but see, this is stuff, you guys, to give you the notes at home. This might all be in our ears. This more richer, cleaner signal might be much better for Steve to work with. So we will see how that goes.
That's what we hope. And
Wasn't
Rob,
his birthday? When's his birthday?
I didn't drop my drink. I dropped Scott's drink both times.
Yep. That's the way it goes. The way it goes.
So I shouldn't have been touching
Marvel Gargan
his
says,
drink.
beat me to the Beck reference. Yes. Chris Grawl says, flying fluid. No comment. All right.
Cobalt is all sausage. Yeah, this is all how the sausage gets made.
It's how the sausage is made. Let me get, since
Now,
I
I don't think, did you do any prepping of the photos?
No.
They're right there. I can vamp for a minute or two.
Yeah, vamp for me, because I might actually have those.
Yeah, they're all in the art bin.
Let me bring my headphone down a little bit and bring yours down a little bit. See if that does anything with the ring sound.
I just think
so you have to vamp for a second, and I'll
Yeah.
see what I can do.
So as the sausage gets made, I'll tell you that I put collateral photos to share with you guys in our chosen spot. That's one of them.
Is there only just the one ad in here, babe? This is the
ad?
same as last week. We
Yeah, it's-
added one,
We added one.
and you
yes.
added that
And
cover.
yep.
Great. I'll get that fixed.
And so, but me putting them in a folder isn't enough to show them to you in a podcast. What has to happen in the podcast is Scott puts them in a place where he can access them when
we're
he's
good to
live
go, bro.
streaming.
We're good to go.
So apparently we're good to go. If you guys didn't know, what we're doing is
the back button doesn't work.
is going over. Scott asked a handful of his author friends what they wish they knew before they were published, and we're going to show you whatever books those are of those friends of Scott's, those author friends of Scott's.
Great. So
while
we're not
talking
going to
about the
move. We're just going to leave this up, and we're going to get rolling. So we're going to keep this up. We can do that. Come back to books. We're good to go. So you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, let's get this rolling. So this is where we start the deep cuts. There's no more story stuff. Can you just touch that end of and just push a little tiny bit,
Well,
like
you
a
did
tiny
say
bit.
touch.
Nope. Now pull a little bit. That sounds naughty. Stop. It does sound super naughty. Just a little bit.
Also, if any of you need paper towels, we obviously have.
Last note,
them.
babe. See how it's peeking in the red on the right VU meter? It's
Yeah.
that little left VU meter that you keep an eye on.
Oh,
I don't know why they're different.
Okay, that helps a lot.
Yeah, it should help a lot.
That helps a lot.
Okay, let's get into it. Let's get this. Oop. What the fuck?
Should I vamp?
Yeah, you got to vamp for a second.
Apparently, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but we messed with the microphones a lot today. So now I can hear every time back here, my mouth makes a noise or my throat makes a noise. I hear a lot of
Yeah, I wouldn't add more
every
of
time
those
I talk.
noises.
What? I was just
Okay, I'm
vamping.
checking mine. I'm good.
I'm
and
good.
you're
I'm
good.
good. I'm good. Right?
I
I'm
seem
good.
like a
I'm
lot
good, I'm
louder
good, I'm
than
good.
you, but we'll take care
as
of that
ever.
in post. We'll take care of that in post.
All
All right, you
right.
ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. Do I have the? Yes, ready?
I do. I am. I mean,
Okay, ready? And go. Ah, you fancy pro authors, getting paid to put out books and stories and whatnot. You know everything about the publishing biz, right? Wrong, oh fish breath.
we have asked a bunch of pro authors about things they wish they'd known before getting published, including Delilah Dawson, Jonathan Mayberry, and of course, your future dark overlord, Scott Sigler. We'll share their tidbits of wisdom right after this quick break.
Okay, and I'm peeking for some reason, so no, that's not good enough. Bring that back up a smidge. That should be good right there. Okay, here we go. Welcome to Deep Cuts, the bonus episode of the Scott Sigler Slices Fiction Podcast, where a sci-fi author and an audiobook narrator discuss things and stuff in the world of fiction and pop culture. I am Scott Sigler, sci-fi horror author known far and wide as the future dark overlord.
And I am A.B. Sigler, publisher at Empty Set Entertainment and audiobook narrator. And on this Deep Cuts, we're talking about things pro authors wish they'd known before they published.
A reminder, this is a bonus episode of the Scott Sigler Slices podcast, not part of any particular story. You don't have to listen to keep up on our current tale, but we think you'll like this sneak peek behind the storyteller curtain.
Let's get started.
Let's go. Let's rock.
All right, so there are so many things that I wish I knew before I started to work with an author who wanted to publish.
Okay.
And he was already a published author at that time.
Yeah, he was
but
very fancy.
None
Very fancy.
of this is what we're talking about today.
Mhm.
This is what we're talking about. If you are a writer who has yet to be published, or you're a writer who has self-published and wants to move forward in the publishing journey, what are things that people who have done either what you're doing or published directly with a big five or whatever at the beginning wish they known in the beginning? I will tell you guys ahead of time because it's very interesting. There's a lot of overlap, which is nice for somebody who is not necessarily a
Great.
published author yet, that a lot of published authors who are published in many different genres have similar overlap. There are some differences, but we're going to get into it. So do you want to go first or last or in the middle?
I fucking forgot my point, so I'm going to probably go somewhere in the middle when I remember what it
All
was.
right, cool. Yeah,
Did
yeah.
I tell you what my point was? Because I have many.
Well, we last week when we first soft launched this idea, it was about the workload. But I think now that you've said that, I think we are going to talk about other people's perspectives,
Yeah.
and then you'll jump in
I'll
whenever
chime in on all their points.
right, and when I believe at some point the vibe is going to move you.
Yep.
And you can talk about your own thing. So
Let the
should we do
wind
it this?
move
Should we
you.
do it this way?
Sweat. Let the writing take control. Okay, go ahead.
You good?
Yep.
You need any more vibes out? Maybe
Let
one
the
more.
music move you. Sweat. Okay, I'm good now. I got it in my system.
So should we do this where whatever cover comes up, we talk about
Absolutely.
that? Okay, let's go.
Absolutely. So now, those of you listening at home, we do a live stream every Wednesday night. This is ripped from a live stream. It's Wednesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can join us live and be with all the cool people in the chat room and ask us questions live at youtube.com/ScottSigler, Facebook.com/ScottSigler, Twitch.tv/ScottSigler. Let's get into it. The first book that we have up is by Dennis K. Crosby. The book is called Death's Legacy. So we have a picture of Dennis's book up while we talk about Dennis.
We will.
And
So
I did.
Dennis-
You didn't get author pictures in here, did you?
No.
Yeah, let's go with it. We're good.
So Dennis K. Crosby. It doesn't matter if you like the book. You don't care what the author looks like, so we're going with that.
Yep.
Dennis K. Crosby is a local to us San Diego author. He is spearheading a anthology that Scott is a part of that will come out sometime this year.
Not supposed to talk about that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That was embargoed information, and I ruined it. So
you guys have seen nothing. You have seen
Nothing
nothing.
to see here.
These aren't the books that you were trying to find.
that's my. I'm so sorry.
Hey,
I
your
didn't
brother's in the
realize.
chat room. All right.
Hey, dude.
So we'll
I
click
did not
back in.
realize that was embargoed info. Anyway,
So Steve, do your thing and trim all that out. So let's
we're going to
just
start over
pick up
from here. Ready?
you-
3, 2, 1. Dennis K. Crosby is a local to San Diego author who frequently collaborates and contributes to similar anthologies,
Good dude.
physical
Super
in-person
good dude.
events
Yep.
that Scott does, and some of the other local to San Diego authors. And he contributed this information. I asked a handful of people, what did you wish you knew before you published? And here's his response.
Okay.
As I look back, I wish I knew or knew more
Okay.
about the tech behind certain social media platforms to assist with marketing efforts. I was fortunate enough to learn about the importance of social media early on to help build my platform and audience in no small
In those go from
in
those.
in in no small part in no small part thanks to Scott. But the tech knowledge surrounding the creation of videos, for example, was not on my radar.
Mhm.
And having witnessed the impact it's had on certain authors and certain genres, I think that knowledge would have helped me reach a wider audience.
Yes, absolutely. And as far as the things that people wish they knew before getting into the game, one of the big factors here is a common complaint people my age and say 10 years younger than me, maybe 12, 13 years younger, is none of this shit existed, right? When I started out, you tried to get with a big publisher, a medium publisher, a small publisher. Self-publishing was a thing relegated to people with garages and money to burn. It was not conducive pre-ebook, pre-audiobook as anything other than books on cassette. And in that amount of time, in the time I've been a pro author, it has now blossomed into a very lucrative Audible store. You can put out your own ebooks on Amazon, and you don't need a publisher at all. You also now can get by without having any actual print book, and still, if you're a good writer, good worker, good marketing person, still can make a living at doing this. And what Dennis is talking about, of course, is social media, particularly Book Talk, which is on TikTok, which is evolution of YouTube and BookTube. And now these are things that fucking didn't exist when I started out. So I think the summary of what he's saying, I'll say it two ways for Dennis. One thing he's saying is you can't grow roots. You cannot be a tree. You got to be a bobcat or an ocelot. You've got to be an ocelot. You got to be ready to move. You'll be ready to move to the next level of prey, right? And you just
I feel
can't.
like maybe you're doing the ocelot reference because you are also wearing a Glengooley blue
That's right.
T-shirt.
That's right. I love Archer more than life itself. In a nutshell, what I think he's saying, what I'm saying is, I wish people had told me I don't need to become a massive expert at a particular subject to go, let's say, on a level of 1 cursory knowledge, 10, you can give a lecture at Harvard or something like that. A lot of people would go to like a 7 or an 8 and learning all this really intricate information about, say, social media. Let's say Tumblr. Become the ultimate expert on marketing your books on Tumblr, and then Tumblr goes away. See, now if you're an ocelot with your little claws, you're bouncing around, you're not caught up by that.
You were never able to get on.
No, because you don't have fingers.
You just have claws.
That's correct. That's correct. And what Dennis is saying about the video stuff is now a significant advantage in marketing your book and self-promoting your book, even if you have a publisher who's not going to do fucking shit. Publishers don't do shit ever. I wish I'd known that before I got published. Is Dennis is trying to learn how to make videos, little short videos that'll just 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 6 seconds. That's going to capture readers' attention and hopefully get shared by a reader to other people. It is a maddening whole extra level of the game that requires an enormous amount of time, and it's time you're not writing, getting better at your core craft.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
And I need you to take a moment before you answer and genuinely think about the question I'm asking.
Okay.
The question is this. When you were a journalist, writing before you went to work, when you came home from work.
Writing fiction before I went to work, yeah. Continue.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then writing journalism at work.
Yep.
What did you think your job, once you became a published author,
Mm-hmm.
would include? And specifically, did it include marketing or social media?
So I'm probably the last end of a generation that assumed if you got published, it was going to be like Stephen King's ride. Maybe not Stephen King's ride, but in some degree of scale, where largely what Stephen King did was wrote books and went on book tours. That's fucking it. And then you do interviews when the publisher sets up the interviews for you. I'll give you an example. My first book, Infected, that came out that somebody else published. I did a 7-city book tour to launch that. I was on 20 radio shows in one day. In one day. So there was an actual whole setup for ways to get the word out about your book and expose your personality to the potential reader. But those extra effort bits, those were all, when a book came out, you had to do some extra stuff. By and large, if you were lucky enough to be a full-time writer and that was you made enough money, that's your only job, what you did was fucking write books. When I started out, Random House was annoyed at me. They liked me. We got along great, but I kept bothering them because I also have a marketing degree. I'm like, where are you putting this out? What's your marketing budget? Where are you spending? Where's your ad spend? I don't like that cover. We got to do this again. And all this thing, because coming up through podcasting and all my readers run podcasting, I knew what people wanted. So back in the day, all you do is write.
All right, so we absolutely need to move on to whoever is next on the list, because
Let's find
I
out.
sort of have a little spoilers. You guys are going to love this show. Who's next?
I don't know. It's crapping out of me. Give me a second.
All right, take your time. So this idea is so incredibly
I'm just going to have to delete his.
prevalent
There we go.
in the publishing
It's my
world.
my dog, Jennifer Brody.
This
What
is
she
our
got
good
up?
friend
What's up?
Jennifer. Oh, and I'm sorry about the white. I was. Ugh.
Just you don't have to mention that.
All right. So next author that I reached out to is Jennifer Brody.
Okay.
Jennifer Brody is coming out next month with her second book in the Sacrifice series, which is on your screen right now. It's called The Sacrifice of Flesh and Fury.
I read book 1. I loved it. It was really good.
And you guys collaborate behind the scenes on future projects. And the thing she says is, one thing I wish authors knew before publishing is how much marketing and self-promotion would be required even if you go with a traditional publisher.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of first-time authors, like me, assume that
Yep.
once their book is written and published, the publisher will handle all the promotion and
Yep.
it will just magically reach the right readers.
That's
and
basically
none of that. Hang on, and none
Yep.
of that is true.
No, none of that's true. And that's part of what Dennis was saying, and what I was saying when you asked me specifically the question, like how did I think it was going to be? I think Jennifer Brody is closer to my age, so she thought all this can be taken care of. I'm pretty sure right now, if you're a 13 to 21 year old trying to get into the world of publishing and you want to be a creator, want to be an author, they're fully aware they're going to have to do the lion's share of the work.
Right,
Now it's
agreed.
to the point. It's the point now where if you don't have a social media following, if you're not a TikToker, if you're not a YouTuber, big publishers will not take a chance on you. You are now expected to show up with a following that they can capitalize on to market the book. It's very similar to there are young actors getting cast because they have 500,000 followers because they're very pretty and they're very good at the short videos Dennis was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That shit will get you cast in a movie where a better actor will not get cast because they don't have any exposure. And that's not a hard rule. It's floppy in the wind.
100%. And things are changing. And this is, so I went to school in Southeast Missouri. It's a small tangent, but it'll make sense. Southeast Missouri is called the buckle of the Bible Belt. So if you think about where a belt goes on a pair of pants and you think about where the buckle is, it's way up top and it's very concise. And I think that you are in the buckle class of authors publishing where when you grew up and you were writing the draft that got accepted to publish a book, the world worked one way, where the publisher took it from you, took it from there, told you where you were going to go on a book tour, because you had that happen. And you, with your marketing degree, were like, yeah, no, I'd like to expand my book tour. It's
Correct.
okay. I'll take the same money, but I'd like to reach 1.5 times more people.
Right.
That you guys are in that class, but some of that is not possible anymore. And there are some people on either side of that class who like don't want to engage in the social media or feel like they were abandoned by their publisher. Either one. So who's next?
Who is next? Let's get into this. You know what? Take a pause. Talk to me in the camera. Like, glance at me, then you talk to me in the camera. Then we're still making eye contact.
Okay.
It'll feel a lot more natural.
That makes more sense, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think about that before. All right, going back to books. And I don't know how I screwed this up, but that's the way it's live action. Let's get into it now. We're going to... let me introduce this one, please. Okay.
Do you want this, or you
No,
just want to talk about Delilah? Okay.
The next author who was kind enough to help us out with this topic is none other than Delilah S. Dawson, bodybuilder, awesome cat, killer writer. And I just finished this book. Actually, this book is called Guillotine. It is short, and I listened to the audiobook and never quite heard anything like it. It is real world, non-supernatural horror. And I think if you saw the movie The Menu...
Oh, okay.
If you saw the movie The Menu and you liked it, you will fucking adore this book. All right. Now, Delilah is a industry veteran, has written a bunch of Star Wars books, is taking over Terry Brooks' Shannara series.
Yep. So
which
if you're
is a huge
our
moment
age,
for her. Huge moment for her.
And is taking it legitimately from the hands of Terry Brooks with his blessing.
Yeah, with his blessing. So Delilah, whatever Delilah has to say is good information, and she tweets a lot and social media posts a lot about this very topic. What does she have to say to us? What does she share with us?
So any of you who are aspiring writers or writers who hear this, you will absolutely smell your own here. She says, I wish I'd known that a traditional publishing career is not a straight trajectory upwards for most authors. It's jagged with high highs and lower lows and long times spent in the doldrums. Outside of my personal successes or failures, publishing itself is finicky and unstable. Editors come and go. Publishers cannibalize each other. Books may or may not get a future or support, and that's all seemingly at random. At no time do I feel particularly safe or confident about the future, but I do always feel hopeful. Hang on. As long as I maintain my love of the craft and my enthusiasm for the next story, I myself can keep going. Oh, and making friends with authors and publishing folks like you and Scott is one of the biggest perks of the job. Now, before you respond, I just want to say I had reached out to a handful of authors that Scott, knows from the industry the day before Delilah responded. And the day Delilah responded was also the very day that Terry Brooks published an article saying she was the successor of his 50-year-old series, and he was very happy about it. That very same day, she off the cuff wrote to me and said, I never am secure in my future.
Well, yeah, but
oh my goodness.
If Delilah can deliver on this to the satisfaction of the estate of him before he passes the estate and then the publisher, she's in great shape. She's in like Brandon Sanderson, 60% Brandon Sanderson shape, taking over for the Wheel of Time. So,
it's just remarkable, though, that this is a moment that every aspiring writer that follows Delilah, and also Scott himself, as a published writer, would have seen as she's made. This is a good day for Delilah Dawson. And that very day, she sent that.
It is a spectacular day. Delilah's a great person to follow if you're in the creator space, particularly if you're a writer, because there's no hidden emotions with Delilah. Delilah lets you know everything that's going on in her heart and her soul. And me, being a Gen X Midwestern male, I'm often like, I can't tell people how I feel. That's not how I feel about a thing is nobody's business unless I want to punch you in the dick. That's the only reason I share my emotions. Like, you're making me mad and I want to punch you in the dick. But Delilah does not have those constraints and just lets her whole soul flow on social media. It's really fun because it's all in connection with the business. But what was so you can't rely on anything. A and I are in like probably the fourth complete separate iteration of the career, because at one point when I got signed, I was told by the head publisher at Random House they were going to make me the next Stephen King. Like, we're going to spend all the money. We believe in what you're doing. We think your shit is great. We're going to make the Infected series huge. And then 2 weeks after I talked to that guy, the movie rights got picked up for Infected. And the guy who was writing it had just put out a movie that he had screenwritten for, had just come out. And all of a sudden I went from busting my ass for 13 years since I decided I am going to get rich or die trying, which means make a living as a writer or die trying. 13 years after that, everything hits all at once. Seems like I'm made. I've arrived. And then the guy who signed me at Random House, 2 weeks after I got signed, he was gone. A year later, the screenplay didn't get delivered for so long. They finally, he did deliver it, and they're like, this sucks, go back and do it again. By the time he got it again, 2 years been up, the option expired. So now I'm still with Random House, great team, did a great job, but there's a huge difference between, we're going to put out your book, here's your tour, it's great, here's your media opportunities, and like, I'm going to spend every penny this company has to make you the next Stephen King. Big difference. That is trying to say in relation to Delilah, you never know what's coming one day, the next. Everything can change instantly.
It is time for us to take a quick break. If you have a minute, listen to any ads that pop up. There's only one or two, and it helps the show quite a bit. We'll be back right after this.
Oh, I got that key back, right? Pop.
You ready?
Almost. Welcome back to Deep Cuts.
Sorry, do that again. So sorry.
Welcome back to Deep Cuts.
This episode, we're talking about things pro authors wish they'd known before getting published.
And just one final closure point on our wonderful advice or information from Delilah S. Dawson is a lot of authors come into this business, at least if they're around my age bracket, thinking the publisher's going to do all of this wonderful stuff for you and you won't have to do anything but just go write your book and be happy. And that can still happen at any point. To paraphrase Robert Rodriguez from the movie business, if a publisher wants to turn on the money hose and make you a star, you're going to be a fucking star. Mm-hmm. They have the power to put their thumb on the scale, make anything they want happen. They just can't do it with everybody, and it's not going to be you. It's not going to be you.
And the weird thing is they can't tell you who it's going to be. They don't know where they're going to put their money before something gets caught on fire. And I have that experience because I, for weird reasons, have a very shallow relationship with Andy Weir, who wrote, Hail Mary and The Martian.
Martian, yeah.
And it was just for work, but every once in a while I would send him an email for work, and what I would get back is, I'm so sorry, I cannot. I will not even read this email. I am 2.5 years back on my deadline for my publisher. And if I don't get this done, I will lose this publisher. He's put this in his out of office response. I will lose this gig. And this is the best thing I've ever done. And he literally avoided email for almost 10 months and literally said you wouldn't get it. So I get this idea of having to figure out what job you're going to do after trying to do everything as a novelist. So do you want to pull up the next one?
Yeah, let's pull up the next one. Uh-oh.
All right.
Uh-oh.
So you guys know and love Chris Grawl. This is Chris Grawl's Trigger Guard cover. Chris Grawl wrote
Stop. The you guys know and love, don't do this as the podcast.
Oh,
so we don't know what
about
people are
that,
getting.
yes.
So right.
So our next book is Trigger Guard by author Chris Grawl. This is a non-fiction book from a munitions and weapons expert.
Yeah, expert. Small unit tactics expert, military expert.
Who is writing a book for fellow authors to know how to thoughtfully speak about writing. And his thing that he wished he knew is very, very specific to self-publishers, and I wanted to put it in here for this reason. Trigger Guard has, this is his words now, Trigger Guard has a ton of images and illustrations. I needed to publish it in a fixed format. If you guys don't know what fixed format is, that's what a paper book looks like. It's fixed. You can't make any changes. You can't make the font bigger, nothing like that. The problem, Trigger Guard, the problem with Trigger Guard is most EPUB converters only work with a flowable format. So for him, seeking expertise on publishing, not content, would have been useful at the beginning of his journey. He had to figure out how to publish.
Oh, he had to figure out the mechanical part of it.
Right. And so akin to Jennifer not knowing when she started writing fiction that she would also have to be a social media and content expert, or provider at the very least. Chris didn't realize that he would have to know a lot about digital publishing to figure out how to publish his book. So the big thing he wants to import is if you are a self-published author and you're working in a Word document, which almost everybody does, Microsoft Word, you have to import that into Pages for Mac, and then you can export a fixed file. So if you have any questions about that, you can reach out to me at info@emptyset, and I can connect you with Chris, or you can reach out to Chris by going to chrisgrawl.com.
And what Chris is talking about, this always changes too. The way Chris put out this particular book might not be doable in 4 years, or there might be a completely much better, much easier format in which to do it, which takes us all the way back to Dennis Crosby and Jennifer Brody's comments. This shit always changes. Don't go too deep. My advice is learn just enough to get the job done, and don't waste deep cycles on stuff that will be obsolete in a year or 2 or 3.
And I have to point out, this is also true of you, because when Scott did what Scott did to get us all here today, he was like, well, wait a minute, podcasting, I can just read my stories. That's fine. We get almost daily, I'd say probably 4 a week, emails about, hey, Scott, I want to publish my story to have the same success you had. And we have a stored answer, which is when Scott podcasted, audio books didn't exist. Podcasts didn't exist.
Podcast audiobooks didn't exist.
What you should do is publish an ebook, because that way it's much shorter timeline, and then do the work of marketing and all that other stuff. And people are like, no, but the podcast got you all that marketing.
Correct.
It's like, no, the podcast was the marketing. What people email Scott, what they think his origin story is he put out a podcast. One of the big 6 publishers at the time heard the podcast and plucked him from that life and said, you just keep writing and we'll do everything else. And none of that was true.
No, none of that was true.
So that is still true for you, just like Jennifer, just like Dennis. It is an ever-changing moment, and you can't jump in with the rules that were set for Scott 20 years ago.
Right.
You jump in now, and you have to be cognizant of what is happening now.
Well,
and the sad thing is, for any content creator, they also have to be cognizant.
Not only do you have to be a creator, a social media person, and you have to be a marketer, in some ways you have to be a prognosticator. To be successful at this point, unless the fairy dust gets sprinkled on your shoulders, and only a few, if you're over the age of 30, not going to happen for you. End of story. End of story. Not going to fucking happen for you in this industry.
And if you're younger than 30, you can't influence that at all. It just has to be sprinkled on you.
It's the right author with the right book at the right time, which is a crazy Venn diagram of space is this big. You have to be a prognosticator, which means nowadays you have to be reading about the current publishing tech, reading about the publishing industry, reading about Book Talk, reading about, BookTube, and try and I think things are going to kind of go in this direction for all the marketing stuff. I don't advise, you don't do this for your writing. You don't try and guess the market content-wise, because you're always going to be wrong. Unless you're able to crank a book out really quick and already have the machinery in place to put that book out, however that is. You got to really start to understand the industry and be like, okay, I see now, if I follow Scott's model, I'm largely going to be wasting my time. And now I am competing with the Midas Touch and Joe Rogan and all those other shows, which didn't exist when I came out, right?
Right, exactly.
So you have to be a student. You have to look at the whole industry. Again, this all takes time. but shit, I wish I had known beforehand.
Agreed, but you made a good point right here, which is looking at Scott's trajectory. You could lift a lot of things out of that if you are a novelist who is just trying to publish their first book.
Mm-hmm.
You could pick out, well, he podcasted, and that got him a book deal. Or you could pick out that he had published for more than or he had written for more than a decade and sent out letters and all that. What you should pick out is he looked at the market as it was and shot his shot. And it turned out that shot worked.
Yeah.
The podcasting shot worked. But if you look at the market as it is now, the right answer is not start your own fiction podcast from scratch, necessarily.
Michael Moore in the chat room says he wants the rights to create 50 Shades of Gnomes. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I would skim through large sections of that book, but I probably would read that book.
Okay.
All right, who's next?
next?
Let's go. We've
That's
got
up
to
to
get
you.
to Bing. Oh, geez. This is the pimp, the king pimp of the world right now.
Burned? Oh, I can't wait.
Jonathan Mayberry, Burn to Shine. Just came out a week ago.
I know.
2 weeks ago, something like that, yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying to finish the current book I'm reading
Joe
so
Ledger
that I
book?
can listen
Yeah.
to this.
This is a Joe Ledger book. Jonathan Mayberry is creator of Joe Ledger, which is in development as a TV show right now. He is also the author of the V-Wars series, which was made it one season on Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
So he has done literally everything under the sun, multiple Bram Stoker Award winner, and what we call a mensch. He actually he does everything he can to be available to help facilitate the careers of other people. Great dude. What do you have to say?
It's a little long, but it's worth it. He says, on reflection, I wasted years believing in writer's block, and every single time I hit a small speed bump, I'd fall into a depression and allow myself to get overwhelmed with the hopeless feeling that these were problems I could never and would never solve. And this is what I would tell my published younger self. The community of writers that you will find if you look, and the networking that begins as soon as 2 or more writers are in conversation, had every answer I needed. Often, it was as simple as learning about an element of the craft I did not yet know. The more time I spent with other writers, the less blocked I felt, and the more easily that blocks appeared began to crumble.
Mm-hmm.
Collectively, the writing community knows secrets, and if I could go back and tell my earlier self, I might have gotten through that golden door sooner, been successful earlier, and had a hell of a lot more fun, and most critically, would have stopped blaming myself for being a bad writer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Jonathan sent us a whole lot more than that. And I have all that in case because it's so rich and deep and meaty, but that's his general gist. Like, just let other people tell you you are a bad author.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell yourself.
Okay.
Ask other people because they will tell you. Find the community that will speak to you. Don't send blanket letters and never get a response and think you're a bad writer. Literally talk to somebody who will talk to you about your writing.
Well, this is an interesting XY coefficient. Is you have to have enough belief in yourself that you are going to continue to develop your craft, skill, and maximize your talent, that you will eventually get to the point where you are a good writer. And a good writer in this world is defined as people will buy your books. You're a good writer. End of fucking story. That's literally, in the world of publishing, if 10,000 people will buy your book, you are a good writer, because this is a business. Writing is a business. But at the same time, you do have to be seeking out feedback from people in the industry, not your writer, not your crit group. If you're an unpublished author in a group with 8 other unpublished authors, take everything they say with a grain of salt.
Agree.
Was what they say makes sense to you? Cool. It's what they say, like, I don't think I would have done that without you saying it. Like, they don't have an industry pedigree. They don't have the 10,000 people who will go buy their book. So therefore, hold that information at bay. But when you do get the actual agents and the actual publishers and the people who between the lines are saying, like, bro, get another job, have another goal, you got to listen to that. At the same time, you have to have super thick skin.
Yep.
And you have to have a fuck you attitude. A fuck you, I'll show you attitude. I have 128 rejection letters in a file from when people actually mailed manuscripts and you got actually written mail back. It was like pre-email days. of people, like all the different reasons they passed on my books. And they weren't wrong. I became a much better writer during that. But so it's a combination of you have to listen to people at the same time. You are a slugger. If you want to get into this business, you are not a boxer. You are not a jabber. You're not doing the sweet science. You are a slugger who's going to get hit. You're going to get hit a lot. And you have to keep moving forward, taking the blows until you figure out this shit, get better at your game, and get to where you want to go.
Yeah, it's a really good lesson that I think as writers, you guys have to learn for sure. But as humans, we learn over and over. And one of my very favorite mentors in my life was my friend Allison's mom. And before she died, she taught me to tell myself when I was getting spun up and angry about something or whatever, ask myself if I was borrowing trouble. Am I borrowing trouble? Is this my trouble now? Is this my trouble later? Is this Scott's trouble? Am I borrowing trouble? And that's that same idea. Like you can approach the thing you're trying to do and say, well, Scott did it this way. I could do it this way. Or you can look at what you're looking at and not take offense to the fact or, not challenge yourself or whatever with the fact that he made it in 2007 with podcasting and in 2025 you might not have the same success. You can take that as I'm putting my flag in the sand and doing it this way, or you can look at the field of play and maybe choose something else. And that's really hard to do as a human being.
Yep. All right. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. If
you're rolling. Go ahead.
I was going to say, can you scroll back down a little bit in the text because there were a couple of points right there that I think are very interesting. Michael Moore says, other people almost always tear one down. It's a sad state of affairs. Do not listen to others. Listen to your heart. And I agree. That is 100% correct. Unless you are going into a pact with a writer's critique group or something. Like if you are willingly walking into a community of people who are agreeing to be honest and hard.
Well, it goes back to if you're going to start a small business, say 50 years ago, and Croc, the guy who founded McDonald's, looks at it and says, this is a dumb shit. Trust me, this will never go. Experts in the field you listen to, and people who are like, I would like to cook hamburgers someday and sell them. You vary your response and your attention based on their expertise in the industry. At the same time, as we said in the chat room, my theory is a lot of times the people who succeed in the world are the people who are too stupid to know when they should quit.
Oh, that's so interesting that you said that because in my head, I didn't think that was where you were going.
Yep.
And I was going to add, but you sort of said it. Too stupid to
know they should quit because they have to do, because hold that thought. I can't tell you the number of times I was told to quit this profession. And I'm a good storyteller, you guys. I'm fucking really good at what I do. I wasn't always really good at what I do, but I knew I sort of got the gist of what would make a good story. If I had listened to people telling me, okay, you need to hang up this dream and go be a banker or whatever, I would never have got to where I am. So yes, you do need to listen to experts, but at the same time, it really comes down, it's down to 50 Cent, get rich or die trying. If you're willing to burn it all down to make that thing, you have to accept you may burn it all down, and you probably will burn it all down, and you probably won't have a success, and you'll die penniless and insane. But if you can accept that dying penniless and insane is an option, the world is your oyster.
It's interesting because I tell you guys often that I am not a creative. And this is one of the ways that this keeps coming back is I would absolutely take somebody who knows what I'm trying to do, has some expertise, telling me, baby girl, you're not a writer. In fact, I went through Project Greenlight thinking I was going to write screenplays because I love movies. Mm-hmm. And I learned, you know what I'm not? I'm not creative. That's not for me. But because it was a collaborative moment, it didn't look like people trying to shut me out of their competition as much as it was, you are going to need to do a lot more that you don't seem to be willing to do, which was true.
Yeah, it's willing to do the work. So if you
find people who are willing to be honest with you about what you want to do with your whole life, they will eventually tell you, like, okay, you can keep tilting at this windmill and you absolutely can self-publish it or whatever. But these are going to be roadblocks for you. And I think that that's really important to have people who you trust tell you hard things.
In the chat room, David Lamb says, I wonder if some of those people that rejected Scott could see where he wound up and would kick themselves. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I don't think so.
One time, short story, really quick. One time, a guy who rejected me, that had his fucking letter in my hand, reached out to me after I was a made guy. Like, hey, we got this new author coming up. Would you consider doing a blurb? He didn't remember.
Yeah.
He had literally rejected my book and wrote me a letter back. And I was like, I have been waiting for this moment my entire life. Because basically every time I got a rejection letter was like, fuck you, I'll fucking show you. Like that was just, I should have it tattooed on my, fuck you, I'll show you. And it drove me to work harder, work longer, do more research, find the things. So I got, I take a picture of the letter, email it back like, hey man, because of course I know what it's like to be at the ground level of this industry. And if I got a chance to help someone out, absolutely will. Like, I'd be happy to take a look at the book. It's so funny. Like I have your rejection letter from when you passed on my book, thinking that he's just been like, oh my God, Sigler got that big deal from Random House. Oh my God, Sigler's New York Times bestseller. Oh, I'm so dumb. And basically what I got back was the boomer equivalent of like, ha 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 ha. I totally forgot about that. Which means not only forget about it, he didn't remember it. He had no clue. He had passed my book. He had lost zero sleep. He did not bother him one bit.
And will never, and this is actually true in so many aspects of our lives, because I have never had that rejection moment because I'm not a creative. I've never done that. But the amount of time that I have spent second guessing, thinking up the thing I should have said, and I'm talking about professional, not just like personal catty fighting or whatever. Like, okay, now that I've had 6 years to replay this in my mind, you should have done this. Mm-hmm. Only to go back and people say, oh my God, I've been following, like, this paper that you presented was so smart.
Yep, doesn't happen.
No, but that did happen to me. Where I applied for a job when I was still doing pharmaceutical research and wanted to work on a project and got shut down. And then a few years later, presented a paper at a scientific thing where somebody came up and said, I'd love to work with you. And I was like, you could have worked with me. What are you talking about?
Did they remember?
Well, I literally flummoxed. I was like, but you said no. And they were like, no, I did not. What are you talking? No, just send your stuff again. And then quite literally did not, before they can connect a piece of you, they're looking at the abstract of you. And the abstract of you, they didn't have time for. They've never thought about that again. Like you say, they never thought about, I rejected
nobody
you.
loses sleep. You're not, your revenge fantasy is not going to happen. Yeah, it's just, I was poised. I literally saved the physical letters.
I love it.
So I could have them. So I could have this one moment where some motherfucker be like, I did pass on your story and I was demoted and then I had to work my way back up and it's been a constant source of shame for me ever since that I was so dumb I didn't recognize that you're a goddamn genius. That is never going to happen for you. So just keep the rejection letters, keep the emails because they're motivating and move on from there.
So I think we have one more other author.
You
have been chatting all along, but I want to give you the opportunity. I think at the end we'll do this one more, and then if you have anything else to add,
I have things to say, ma'am. I have things to say.
Always, of course.
Our next is none other than awesome dude, newish dad, Nicholas Sansbury Smith.
Oh yeah, with his second...
author of the Helldiver series, hugely successful, hugely popular among many other series. And he has a new book out in that series called Rhino. I don't think it's a novel, it might be a novella. Mm-hmm. But this is a motherfucker who basically, on a separate timeline, kind of did what I did, which is like, well, I can't get the publishers won't take my books, so suck a bag of dicks. I'm going to put out my own books. And Nicholas Sansbury Smith is completely a self-made author. And now he got great deals with Blackstone and works with a lot of people, but he figured out the game himself. And he, Jeremy Robinson is another one. And there's a lot of people out there. Wait, I gotta say one more. Who am I reading? This fucking hold on. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. I will say also,
David Wellington. Go ahead.
I will just say, if you haven't read Nicholas Sansbury Smith and you haven't read Helldivers and you like Scott's work, I would recommend at least trying this series. It's, I think, 13 or 15 books long. So if you love
It's
a
a
long,
long
series,
series, yeah.
like Jonathan, I love to read Jonathan Mayberry for this reason, Richard Cadre for this reason. Same thing. If you love continuing series, you would love this. If you don't love continuing series, you will absolutely love the first handful of these books too.
Yeah, like a lot of the series I read, if you're like, okay, now we're on book 8 and I know the guy's going to live because I can see the pre-order for book 9, if that turns you off, read Helldiver books 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, and 3, you will be happy, I assure you.
But as a publisher, as a novelist who is quite similar to Scott, but came a decade or a little bit more than a decade later, he did the thing where he started with ebooks, not podcasting, with not audiobooks, all that stuff. And he did this same thing and then moved on to traditional and professional publishing, as it's called. His advice was that self-publishing allowed me to reach an audience of readers that I would never have had access to had I gone the traditional route. The other thing I wish I had known, but found out very quickly, is that writing is always a business. You have to be willing to do the things a publisher is going to do if you self-publish, or even if you go with a publisher. Marketing, engaging with readers, and selling your work is just as important to a novelist as writing.
And that is the summary of what many of our author friends have been saying, and I will close on this. The thing I wish I had known before I got published was that the land of sugar fields and candy cane dreams is not a real thing. You are a business person. You're running a small business where the only one who really gives a shit about your business is you. And if you're very lucky, your significant other is also heavily invested in your business. Now, you may have allies like agents or publishers or whoever the person at the publisher you're dealing with now who might be gone in 2 weeks. All of these people can contribute to the cause, but unless you are a fucking tank taking shots all the time, rolling forward, knowing you're going to take damage and you have to keep going and you have to figure out how to advance the line, it's not the business for you. If you want people to pat you on the head and tell you you're special, if you want to powder your bottom and tell you that you're a special boy, you need... That's from Anchorman. Yeah, it's Vince Vaughn, who I adore.
Yeah, no, I wasn't ready for it.
Did she powder your bottom? Did she tell you you're a special boy? If that's what you want, go work for someone else. Go work for someone else. If you're a creator, you're an artist, you're a musician, you're an author, any stripe of that, if you are not willing to get punched in the fucking mouth over and over again and get up and keep rolling, knowing that just because you keep getting up doesn't mean you're going to get the treat. I'm the last guy who will tell you, like, if you keep tilting at windmills, eventually that windmill is going to fall. That is not real life. You may commit your entire existence to this and keep plowing forward and taking damage, and you might never get there. You have to accept you might never get there, and you're going to do this or die trying.
Yep.
Life doesn't... I know we're talking about publishing books, but this is an overarching concept. Life will never give you a participation trophy.
That's correct.
Ever.
Yep.
Your mama might. Your papa might. Your favorite person on earth might. They might do that for you, but they're doing that for you. They're not doing that for the greater good. They're not doing that to make money. They're doing that because you need it. Life does not give you a participation trophy. Just because you desperately want to be a novelist,
Yep.
nobody cares.
And we will sum this
Nobody
up
cares.
with Chris Grawl in the chat room, author of Trigger Guard. Like, I can do this all day. That's the attitude you have to have. I'm willing. I will die trying to do this, or I will succeed. And both are fucking okay.
But here's the thing. For Chris, who wrote Trigger Guard, and for Scott, they have been told no 1,000 times.
Yep.
10,000 times.
Correct.
And they had other indicators. I can do it myself. I have these other people who like what I'm doing with this podcast I'm doing. They had other outward signs that they should keep going. If literally everyone is telling you for a decade, this is not your strong suit, this might not be your strong suit.
I will
Find people who you can trust and listen to them.
I will sum this up with a paraphrase from one of my favorite authors, Matt Dinneman, author of the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, hugely successful. Fuck you. You will not break me. I will break you. I will break you. And when I read that in Matt Dinniman's work, I'm like, that's basically him that's that dog trying to get published, basically. It's within the context of the story, but that's the gist of it. That's the attitude you have to have. Like, fuck you. Fuck you.
And I totally agree. And I think that we're mostly done with our episode, but I want to ask, can you, because I do not tilt at these windmills.
Okay.
Can you think of a thing someone could say to you where you're like, all right, I might hang up my pen.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they said, is there a thing you can think of if somebody says, hey, your quippiness is falling off, hey, your whatever, is there something, is there any way to prove you're wrong that fuck you, I'm going to do it anyway?
It's an extremely difficult question because I got told by, at every level of the industry, very politely, like, yeah, you sort of got the chops, but this is just not going to happen for you. So I guess the answer to that is no, because if you are a person who is wired to accept no for an answer to begin with, you don't belong in this business. You just don't. So there can't be anything about what you can do. You don't belong in this business. Tell me why. What in this story do you not like? What in my writing do you not like? I don't have time for this right now, sir. Like, and then you bother the fuck out of them. Like, I understand you don't have time for this, but this is an economic scale for you. I will keep bothering you and your staff for the next 15 years until you give me an answer, or you can take 10 minutes and give me an answer right now.
So had you done that and they were like, fine, I'll never publish you. I don't know where to put you on a bookshelf, which is what you got told in 2007.
Every
and now
time.
Bookshelves don't exist in bookstores
Every
because they
time,
don't
yep.
exist as much. And you hadn't published a single thing other than self-published to this day in March of 2020, would you still tilt at windmills for the rest of your life?
I believe I would. I think the reason I have success is I didn't have an Ivy League school. My dad wasn't roommates with a publisher. My mom wasn't a famous author. And not that any of these things are bad. Whatever lever you get to get in the industry is great. Go for it. I had absolutely nothing. I was a dirty butt kid from Sheboygan, Michigan. I went to a tiny little college in Michigan, 0 connections, never been to New York, never been to LA, all that stuff. All I knew was I had a giant chip on my shoulder and like, I'm willing to get rich or die trying. There's nothing anyone could have said to me to make me stop doing what I am doing. That said, if I had a kid and had to provide for a family, that might have been different. I never had a child. And
you never had to think outside of these 4 walls.
And then my first marriage, that person went in this marriage fully aware that I was a complete psychopath on this path and it was never going to change. And this girl knows, my second wife, she knows this is never going to fucking change. This is who I am. But if I had a kid, that might have changed things.
Right, because they didn't choose to get into this with you. You chose them.
Correct.
They didn't choose you.
Correct. You gotta buy diapers and put food on the table.
Yeah, it's a really interesting thing because I believe that had Scott been tilting at these windmills still all this time later, 20 years without having any broad scale publishing success, I would still love what he puts out.
Thank you.
But I don't think that would have been fair to you or your family. And so there are people who will always tilt at windmills because they believe in themselves. And that was the answer. That was the piece I couldn't think of. There is going to be an outside influence that will weigh on you, whether or not it's a child or
the
whatever.
Wrinkle that folds back to Jonathan Mayberry, where he's like, don't tell yourself you suck, let other people tell you suck. I think my take is a little bit different on that. You are listening to people who tell you suck because you're like, great, I'll fix that. I'm going to get better at this. Your characterization sucks. I'm going to learn characterization. Your plot makes no sense. It doesn't. I'm going to learn how a plot makes fucking sense. So in the process of fuck you, you will not break me, I will break you, has to be a lot of like, man, I got to get my reps in. I got to get better at this. If you think you're good, you're not good. When I said earlier, I'm a good storyteller, every fucking day I'm like, I could have done this so much better. I have to learn how to be better at my craft. I have to get better and better and better. That combined with you will not break me, I will break you, is a really good mix, I think.
So I know we're going a little bit long. I want to bring up one more point that happened in the chat room, which I think is very salient. D79 in the YouTube chat room said,
D79.
it's odd because my kid drives me to success. And that is the perfect way to put this, because it is that your kid drives you to success. It's success that has changed for you. And that would have happened to you. Had you had a child, then what constitutes success for you would include the thriving of that progeny. If you didn't have that, you could drive a lot of that energy. But yeah, that's the thing, to always be reevaluating to make sure that you are meeting your goals in the world you want to live in, the family you want to live in, the chosen family you want to live in. If you're still meeting all of those parameters, I'm a good parent, if you have a child, I'm a good whatever lifeguard, if that's your volunteer, whatever it is, if you're still doing all of that and tilting at windmills, great. If you can't do the things you want to do to be a good human being without compromising what you were going to do to be a good novelist, then you're failing on both sides. You have to be a good novelist within the world of being a good person and a good human being and a good part of your family. And I think that you still have success. At D79, if you'd never had a child, you would still feel successful. And you feel successful now because you have another motivator to drive you. And I think that is the real story here, to be able to have a life you're proud of and a job you're proud of and potentially something to leave behind, like a novel that you're proud of. All of those are important things, but to be a happy and successful human, you have to kind of do all those things together. And sometimes, especially when you're younger, like we're old folks, when you're younger, you kind of forget that a little bit and tilt at bigger windmills than you need to for too long or whatever.
Last thing we'll say, all of that being said, you got kids, bunch of kids, you know, you can do anything. At the end of the day, in this business, if you are working for someone else, you will never be the captain of your own ship. A lot of federal employees are finding this shit out in recent hurry. Economic downturn, you figure it out. Nobody cares about you except you and your family. And so while you are tilting in windmills, it's worth remembering, if you are building up or working toward building up recurring revenue, no matter how small that revenue might be, that revenue in that business, that is yours to decide to do with as you choose. If you're not reporting to a boss about your publisher, if you're an independent guy, independent person, it's absolutely worth a fucking fight.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And being the captain of your own ship also requires you to make sure that if the boatswain's mate goes overboard, the boatswain's mate work gets done. So that means you might be swabbing the decks as a captain, and you have to be willing to do that. Putting that into Scott's terms, he can write a story all day. That can be his job if somebody will do everything else. But if nobody is doing the social media, or for years and years now, he had to do everything technical. I'm trying to learn that. He had to, or we wouldn't be able to podcast with you.
Right.
He had to do it because he had to do it. Does he like that I'm starting to learn how and help support that? Yeah, that's way better. But if you're going to captain your own ship, you get a lot of perks, but you're also responsible for the entire ship.
I think the bottom line is, this is the shittiest job I would never give up.
Right. It's the shittiest best job ever.
This fucking job, this job sucks, you guys. This job largely, it's periodic, huge bursts of bonus points that have to sustain you through a fucking giant trek across the desert with no water, while the nomads are trying to hunt you down because your spleen is a magical thing. I was trying to look up a quote by Triple H, wrestling fame. Triple H, we're gonna cut this part out because I can't get the phrase. But let's finish up, babe.
What I will say is, I love the idea that this is the shittiest best job ever.
It's if I was smart, I wouldn't do this fucking job. I literally wouldn't. But you know why? Because I wake up in the morning and just about the time getting out of jail and you're walking down the street, I crack your fucking head open again. You know why? Because I'm stupid. That's who I am. That's how I work. The Joe Pesci monologue from, is it Goodfellas? Yeah, from Casino.
That's what I was just thinking, because you just quoted me Casino over the weekend, and I said Goodfellas.
If
but it
you
was
guys, last thing I'll say, I know I've said it 3 times. Last thing I'll say is, if you want to know what it's like to have the attitude you need to be successful in this business, look up Joe Pesci, I'm Stupid, Casino and watch it like 10 times in a row, and you're Joe Pesci, and you have to be willing to take a bullet to get through it. So that is going to take care of, that is it for this episode of Deep Cuts.
Next week, we're going to talk about what 20 years of content creation looks like.
It's ugly, ladies and gentlemen. But that is it for this episode. Goodbye.
We love you guys. Are we done? Are you? Yeah, okay. Good.
Done
We're
recording.
Just doing that.
Oh my
Thank
God,
you
what
guys
a
so
nightmare
much.
for Steve. Jesus. It's not as bad as
I mean,
last
it's
week.
not as bad as last week.
At least he's got consistent signal through the whole thing. Michael Moore says, stuff
really
goes away
does
as
go
feast or
away.
famine in business. Good night, Sean. Yeah, good night, guys. We're not recording anymore, so we're just hanging out with you guys
and
while we finish up.
I assume you guys do this too. Like some days I am on top of the world. I love my life. I love my job. I love that I have the ability to rearrange my day, which I didn't
it's
have
great.
when I worked in
Correct.
corporate
Thank
and
you,
all this
Michael.
stuff.
Thank you,
and
D79.
sometimes quite literally in the same day, in the same half of the day, the morning or afternoon.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Cobalt.
I realize I hate everything about my job. Literally like 2 hours later. And just
Oh
being
my
able
God.
to talk with you guys about that and realize that it doesn't have to do with a small business, which we are.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to do with a creative business, which we are. It has to do with feeling fulfilled in your life, no matter if you work a corporate job, a standard job, a fast food job, whatever. You need to find that. And that has been really interesting to see how that unfolded today for me, because I didn't think that I was going to question my own what's important to me to feel like I'm contributing.
I think that's part of
there we
why
are.
that's part of why Rocky resonated so much, and the underdog story always resonates, because unless you're born with a silver spoon in your mouth and your daddy's a congressman, you are fucking an underdog. You are always going to be an underdog, and part of being an underdog is you're going to get the fucking shit kicked out of you, and Chris Grawl had a comment in the chat room that I'll paraphrase it: pain is the world asking you, like, how much do you fucking want this?
Yeah, you still here? You still willing to do You
More-
still willing to do this?
More pain means, I don't really think that you want this. And then more and more pain, getting into screeching agony, is like, I still don't think you want this. And the point to all of that is the world never stops asking you if you really want this. Maybe we'll retire someday. I don't know.
Probably not.
Probably not. But it's just a giant, it's like, I still, fuck you. You will not break me. I will break you.
Yeah.
Is a mantra that I've lived by my whole life. And I didn't understand the mantra until I read Dinneman's work. But
And Michael Moore, you make a really good point. Specifically to us, I only found out that you had art after we no longer could hang out face to face and talk about it. Once our neighborliness changed. And I love that about you. And I think I would have loved it anyway to know before. But your point is very interesting. You say, for me, nothing is better than someone enjoying my art, even if they do not buy. And yet, the brief interactions that we had face to face, you never really brought that. You said, I like photography, which is a lot different than you showed us a few examples. But it's a lot more interesting to sort of peruse your art, because you're an artist who sort of looks at a plateau that exists and captures it as opposed to create it. And there's 1,000 different versions of that. And I didn't know that.
Michael says it's not appropriate to promote here. If you want to pay Sling in the chat room, that's fine. We got no problem with that. If people ask in the chat room, it's totally cool.
And
But I get it. I get his
the
point.
after show.
I get
That's
it.
okay.
This is the after show. I get his point. But guys, super fucking fun. Good time hanging out with y'all. Every time I do one of these, I realize I'm still a wee tiny little man. I got a Napoleon complex, but I'm absolutely willing to fucking wait. Quick, give me a Napoleon battle so I sound smart.
I cannot do that.
Wait, give me one he won.
I can't do
I'm
that.
a Napoleon man, and this is my life's fucking Austerlitz, bitch. That's what's fucking up. Dropping Napoleon bombs all day long, sons. Austerlitz is ice, and I slice it up all nice.
Okay.
Russians or Prussians dying in the water.
Why is Napoleon a rapper?
Dude, are you serious? If that little tiny dynamite was born today, you don't think he'd be fucking coming out with the gold chains and fucking pimping it out in a Puma suit?
Listen, Sean,
if you are ever in San Diego and we hang out, this is what's going on.
This happens a lot.
Yeah.
My brother calls this when I meet his dates or whatever, with whoever he's dating, he's like, you have to understand, at some point, without warning, my brother will go to 11. That's how.
I love that.
It's how he describes it to everyone. I mean, he's like, at some point he's going to go to 11. Just relax. It's okay.
Heard that.
Yeah.
I also sometimes I'm like, listen, when people only know Scott professionally, and then, in fact, Michael Moore, we did this with Michael Moore, and like say like, hey, if you're doing any public, and then we say like, hey, why don't we just meet up here or whatever. I sometimes have to be like, sometimes Scott's a lot in his personal life.
Terry Jordan just listed Lil Napoleon. I think if he's rapping, might be Lil Nappy Nap. I think he might be Lil Nappy Nap.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Nappies are diapers.
Breaking that ice and killing bitches. French soldiers getting all them stitches. I wish I had more knowledge. All right, fuck you guys. We're out.
Thank you guys for hanging out with us in the after show. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. And we're going to go over here, switch over to Pretty Boy Cam. What's up, babies? How you doing?
Oh, I forgot about the microphone. I was trying to do this.
I'm going to go hang out with my fucking awesome wife.